America, the very name evokes a land of opportunity, a beacon of freedom, a melting pot of cultures and traditions. Yet woven into the fabric of this nation's history is a complex tapestry of triumph and tragedy, of unity and division. From its earliest days, America has wrestled with the duality of its nature, a nation founded on ideals of liberty and equality, built upon a foundation of conquest and inequality. This journey through time will unearth the layers of American history, exploring the encounters, conflicts, and transformations that have shaped this nation. We will delve into the arrival of European explorers, the displacement of indigenous populations, and the rise of a new nation, built on revolutionary ideals. We will examine the forces that propelled America onto the global stage, the struggles for equality that have defined its conscience, and the enduring challenges that continue to test its resolve. Through it all, we will uncover the stories of those who have shaped America, from the indigenous people who first called this land home, to the waves of immigrants who sought refuge and opportunity on its shores. We will witness the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity, the enduring power of hope in the pursuit of a more just and equitable society. This is the story of America, a nation forged in the crucible of its past, striving to fulfill its promise in the face of its paradoxes and contradictions.
In 1492, Christopher Columbus, an Italian explorer funded by the Spanish crown, embarked on a voyage that would forever alter the course of human history. His journey across the vast and uncharted Atlantic Ocean was fraught with uncertainty and peril, yet it was driven by a vision of finding a new route to the riches of the East Indies. Seeking a westward route to the East Indies, Columbus instead stumbled upon a new world, a land already inhabited by a diverse tapestry of indigenous peoples. These native communities had their own rich cultures, languages, and traditions, thriving in harmony with the land for thousands of years. This fateful encounter marked the beginning of a new era, one that would bring about profound and often devastating consequences for the native inhabitants of the Americas. The initial meetings between Europeans and indigenous peoples were filled with curiosity and cautious interaction, but they quickly gave way to conflict and exploitation. Columbus's arrival in the Caribbean, which he mistakenly believed to be the outskirts of Asia, ignited a wave of European exploration and colonization. The promise of untold wealth and new territories spurred adventurers and settlers from across Europe to embark on their own voyages to the Americas. Driven by a thirst for gold, land, and religious conversion, Spanish conquistadors, followed by other European powers, embarked on a relentless campaign to claim this new territory for their own. They sought to amass fortunes and spread Christianity, often through forceful and violent means. For the indigenous peoples who had long called these lands home, the arrival of Europeans signaled a period of unimaginable upheaval. Their societies were disrupted, their lands were seized, and their ways of life were threatened by the newcomers. The consequences of this encounter were swift and brutal. The indigenous populations faced not only military conquest, but also the imposition of foreign laws, customs, and religions that sought to erase their identities. European diseases, to which indigenous populations had no immunity, swept through the Americas like wildfire, decimating entire communities. Smallpox, measles, and influenza were among the deadliest, causing catastrophic loss of life and weakening the social structures of native societies. Those who survived the epidemics faced displacement from their ancestral lands, forced labor in mines and plantations, and the systematic dismantling of their cultures and beliefs. The exploitation of indigenous labor became a cornerstone of the colonial economy, further entrenching the suffering of native peoples. The arrival of Columbus in the Americas was not the discovery of a new world, but rather the collision of two worlds, a collision that would have far-reaching consequences for centuries to come. This encounter set the stage for a complex and often tragic interplay of cultures, economies, and histories. It marked the beginning of a complex and often tragic chapter in human history, one that continues to shape the world we live in today. The legacy of Columbus's voyages is a testament to the enduring impact of these first encounters, reminding us of the resilience of indigenous peoples and the profound changes that arose from this pivotal moment in history. Following in the wake of Columbus's voyages, a steady stream of European explorers, adventurers, and settlers descended upon the shores of the Americas. These voyages marked the beginning of a new era, one that would forever alter the course of history for both the Old and New Worlds. Driven by a potent mix of ambition, greed, and religious zeal, these newcomers embarked on expeditions to chart the vast wilderness, exploit its resources, and establish a foothold in this new world. They faced numerous challenges, from harsh climates and unknown terrains to resistance from indigenous populations. Yet, their determination to conquer and claim new territories was unwavering. From the icy shores of the north to the tip of South America, the encounter between Europeans and indigenous peoples played out in a myriad of ways, shaping the destiny of the Americas. These interactions were complex and multifaceted, involving trade, cultural exchange, and often violent conflict. The arrival of Europeans brought about significant changes, both positive and negative, for the native populations. Spanish conquistadors, armed with superior weaponry and driven by a lust for gold and silver, carved out vast empires in Central and South America. Their conquests were swift and brutal, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. The Spanish were relentless in their pursuit of wealth, often resorting to extreme measures to achieve their goals. They toppled powerful indigenous empires like the Aztecs and Incas, enslaving native populations and plundering their wealth. The impact of these conquests was profound, leading to the collapse of ancient civilizations and the establishment of Spanish dominance in the region. The cultural and societal structures of the indigenous peoples were forever altered. In North America, French explorers established trading posts and settlements along the St. Lawrence River and the Mississippi Valley, forging alliances with Native American tribes and engaging in the lucrative fur trade. The French approach to colonization was often more cooperative than that of the Spanish, focusing on trade and alliances rather than outright conquest. English settlers, seeking religious freedom and economic opportunity, established colonies along the Atlantic coast. These colonies became the foundation for what would eventually become the United States. The English settlers brought with them their own customs, traditions, and ways of life, which would blend with those of the indigenous peoples and other European settlers. Their encounters with Native Americans were marked by a complex mix of cooperation, conflict, and displacement. While some settlers sought to live in harmony with the native tribes, others viewed them as obstacles to be removed. This led to a series of conflicts and wars that would shape the future of the continent. While some colonists sought to coexist peacefully with indigenous tribes, others viewed them as obstacles to be removed or subjugated. The resulting conflicts often ended in the displacement and suffering of native populations, as European settlers expanded their territories. As European powers vied for control of the Americas, indigenous peoples found themselves caught in the crossfire. The competition between European nations for dominance in the New World led to numerous wars and skirmishes, with native tribes often being forced to choose sides or face annihilation. Many tribes were decimated by disease, warfare, and displacement. The introduction of European diseases to which the indigenous peoples had no immunity resulted in catastrophic population declines. Coupled with the violence of conquest and colonization, these factors led to the near extinction of some tribes. Others were forced to adapt to the encroaching presence of Europeans, forging alliances, trading partnerships, and resisting encroachment on their lands and cultures. The resilience and adaptability of these tribes allowed them to survive, and, in some cases, thrive, despite the overwhelming odds. The encounters between Europeans and indigenous peoples during this era were as diverse as the peoples themselves, leaving an indelible mark on the cultural, political, and social landscape of the Americas. The legacy of these interactions is still felt today, as the blending of cultures and the impact of colonization continue to shape the modern world.
As European powers solidified their presence in the Americas, a patchwork of colonies emerged, each with its own distinct character and ambitions. These colonies were not just mere extensions of their mother countries, but were evolving into unique entities with their own identities and aspirations. The English colonies along the Atlantic coast, in particular, became a crucible for the development of American identity, but also a breeding ground for the divisions that would later shape the nation's destiny. These colonies were bustling with activity, from the hard-working farmers to the vibrant marketplaces that were the heart of colonial towns. From the outset, the English colonies were marked by diversity, not only in terms of their geographic locations and economic pursuits, but also in the religious, social, and political beliefs of their inhabitants. This diversity was both a strength and a source of tension, as different groups vied for influence and control. The New England colonies, founded by Puritans seeking religious freedom, developed a strong tradition of self-governance and a strict moral code. Their communities were tightly knit, with town meetings serving as a forum for local decision-making and reinforcing their collective values. The Middle colonies, with their diverse populations and tolerance for different faiths, became centers of trade and commerce. These colonies were characterized by bustling ports and a mix of cultures, which fostered a spirit of innovation and economic growth. The southern colonies, reliant on slave labor to cultivate cash crops like tobacco and rice, developed an aristocratic society with a rigid racial hierarchy. The wealth generated by these plantations created a class of wealthy landowners who wielded significant political and social power. These regional differences, rooted in geography, economics, and ideology, fostered a sense of sectionalism that would have profound consequences for the future of the United States. The distinct identities of the New England, Middle, and Southern colonies set the stage for future conflicts and alliances. As the colonies grew and prospered, tensions over land, resources, and political power intensified. The drive for expansion often led to disputes over territory and governance, as settlers pushed further into the frontier. Conflicts with Native Americans, fueled by westward expansion and competing claims to territory, further exacerbated these divisions. These clashes were often violent and left a lasting impact on both the indigenous populations and the colonial settlers. Moreover, the institution of slavery, firmly entrenched in the southern colonies, cast a long shadow over the nascent nation. The moral and ethical questions surrounding slavery would become a central issue in the colonies' quest for independence and unity. The transatlantic slave trade, which brought millions of Africans to the Americas in chains, created a system of racialized chattel slavery that would become deeply ingrained in the social, economic, and political fabric of the United States. This system not only dehumanized those enslaved, but also shaped the economic foundations of the colonies. By the mid-18th century, the seeds of division were deeply sown in the American colonies, setting the stage for the revolutionary upheavals that lay ahead. The growing desire for independence and self-determination clashed with existing social and political structures, leading to a period of profound change and conflict.